Mic check one,
Yo,
two.
get out of here with them weak ass shoes, yo.
Balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep in love. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep in love.
What's up, Balls Deep fam? To another episode of Balls Deep with Devin Jovan, where we dive balls deep in the hottest stories in sports. If you're new to the program, I'm your host, Devin, and I'm joined by my co-host, Jovan. And today, we're recording, but outside, there's a blizzard where we are at. So, if you guys aren't dealing with this nor'easter blizzard, good for you, because this shit is chaotic. So,
The way Devin's dressed, you would think he's in the middle of it still currently.
bro, I literally just came inside and I don't want to take this shit off because I'm cold as fuck. I was over here letting my dog out, and my dog was about to, start swimming in the snow because she couldn't even look over it. But before we get started, just make sure to like, follow, and subscribe. Make sure to, leave a review for us. And if you do, we'll shout you out during the episode. And leave some comments. Let us know what you want to hear and your opinions about what we talk about. But today, we're talking about some Wait, don't I gotta cover the barcode. Basketball. We're gonna be talking about some NBA and some relative, WNBA news. So let's get started. And we're going to start with Candace Parker. Candace Parker, one of the biggest WNBA superstars, you can say, ever. She's, joining her hometown Chicago Sky after 13 seasons with the LA Spark. From my knowledge, the Spark's other star player, there was questions on whether she was staying, and there may have been issues with Derek Fisher, the Sparks head coach. Who knows? There hasn't been, confirmation. But the Sky were the players from the Sky were recruiting Parker to come home, reunion, and it was enticing. Like, she's from Chicago, and so the end of her career, she gets to live it out in her hometown. Her family gets to see her, and she gets to compete for a championship. Nothing wrong with that. And then along with that, Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird are staying with their respective teams. Sue Bird signed on for one more year. She won't be ready for the start of the season though due to injury. But Diana Taurasi signed a multi-year deal to stay in Phoenix. Those are some huge superstars. What do you think?
Yeah, the Candace Parker thing's kind of funny. It reminds me a little bit of somebody we recently saw in D Wade when he retired. He went to his hometown, Chicago, and now Candace Parker is doing it. So, obviously, like you said, towards the back end of her career, obviously she's only 13 seasons in, but further back end of her career, she probably just rather, get that home cooking, in her hometown all the time. So,
But
um,
the only difference between that is she got a little bit more juice in the tank. D Wade kind of was pushed out of Miami,
yeah,
where she
D-Wade.
chose to leave Miami or leave
Yeah.
LA. Yeah, I should say.
Yeah, but yeah, and obviously, Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird, obviously two of the greatest WNBA players ever.
To UConn
So
greats.
yeah, definitely. So obviously that's pretty huge. They're staying with their respective teams. Um, Sue Bird not coming off of a few championships. Maybe she's gonna try to win a few more there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and they got another UConn legend over there. So UConn's just living it out, yo. I like
Um,
this. I like this. Now, honestly, to be honest, I don't really follow the WNBA like that, but UConn, being from Connecticut, UConn women's basketball being huge over here, I usually just follow the UConn players when they make it. Like Maya Moore has been my favorite WNBA player for some time. Outside of UConn, Candace Parker, because the LA Spark, being a Laker fan, uh, she goes hand in hand with Kobe, or she did go hand in hand with Kobe. Kobe would train her during the off season and whatnot. So Outside of some UConn players, I haven't really followed WNBA like that. But it looks like it's going to be very competitive moving forward. These teams are making some pushes, like the Chicago Sky, to get better and get an elite player like Candace Parker to put them over the hump. Because they were right there this past season in terms of almost winning it. So it's basically like the Warriors when they went and got KD.
Definitely something to start tuning into a little bit more for for us and for our viewers.
Yeah, and then to shift over to the NBA, we have another ball alert. You can say the Ball brothers this past weekend they came up big in back-to-back nights to take down the Bucks. So Lonzo he dialed up his best game of the season yet for the Pelicans. Amid the trade rumors that are going on or luring around. So like he had his season best 27 points, but it was highlighted by 7 3-pointers. They were complaining about him not being able to get his jumper, get it to knock down or what have you. But he went out and he was guns blazing. His gun was hot, boy. But along with the 7 3-pointers, he has 8 assists, 3 rebounds. So he had a relative, really good game. And then LaMelo to follow had his career high 27 points. So they both had 27 points, along with 9 assists, 5 rebounds. He shot 8 for 10 from the field and 2 for 3 from the 3-point line. And the Hornets took down the Bucks. So the Bucks had back-to-back losses to the Ball brothers. So that's just
Yeah, no,
hilarious.
definitely. I mean, LaMelo Ball, we all know. I mean, he's everywhere. He's news everywhere at this point. Obviously, my rookie of the year pick, but I mean, just in general, I mean, the Hornets looking like you know, maybe a possible playoff team in the East, especially with Gordon Hayward finally getting going over there, picking up some steam. That 1-2 punch might be something serious in the near future. Um, so that'd be great. And then I know you're talking about Alonzo. Amid trade rumors, having his best game. I think Lonzo. It's good to see Lonzo be aggressive. I think it's important for Lonzo to stay aggressive. I think we need to see more scoring outputs like this because we know what he can do on the defensive side of the ball. We know what he can do in terms of facilitating. But I definitely think if he can stay a little bit more aggressive and, not put up crazy numbers, we're not asking for 25 a night, but, if Lonzo could start putting up 15 a night, averaging, 10 assists with his defense, I mean, he's a really solid player to have in your starting lineup. You know what I mean?
And that's the difference between him and LaMelo. So LaMelo on the offensive end is always aggressive,
Yeah,
whereas Lonzo he's pass first. He's looking to give
yeah,
up the ball rather than score himself. And I remember when he was on the Lakers were a much better team when he was aggressive for himself in terms of scoring. And a lot of people were bashing him because they were like, "Oh, he's a bust," because of his shooting ability. But his mid range and his ability to drive to the basket is where he thrived, and
yeah.
when he was aggressive, and that opened up his 3-point shot, which is what happened this game. And
Def-
I think that's what he needs to do. He needs to play, more comfortably. And I think the Pelicans would be stupid to get rid of him because I think him and Zion work perfectly together. Because he is able to get Zion open with Zion's athletic ability and being able, with Lonzo being able to squeeze these passes in areas where no one else really could. So
yeah.
I don't think they should get rid of him. But there was trade rumors in regards to the Warriors being interested in him. The Kelly Oubre project in Golden State hasn't really worked out for them, so they were talking about swapping those two, and I believe he would improve the Warriors' defense, which they've been lacking. But also, I feel like he'd be playing a similar role to what Sean Livingston played for them during their the championship run. So
Yeah.
that would be interesting spot. But I think the two spots that I want to see him in, one, I want to see him in Charlotte. I want to see him play with his brother. I think they play their best when they're together. And like you said, the Charlotte is, you know, they're looking like a playoff contender. I'm not a championship contender, a playoff contender. They're
Playoff.
missing a big man. There's questions whether the coaching staff is holding LaMelo back because he's still coming off the bench and not starting him. I think they should start him. But if you get Lonzo, that's gonna be that chemistry is already gonna be boosted. Like you're not really gonna have to do much in order to fill him in. But and I also would like
Yeah,
to see him
you
in
got two
Dallas.
people who played together their whole lives. Yeah, I mean that'd be huge for them.
Dallas is another one because they're looking for defense as well, and Luka's looking for help on the offensive end. It'll allow him to play
Definitely.
off the ball as well.
That would open up a shit ton for Luka, and especially with Kristaps Porzingis kind of just now getting back into the swing of things, coming back from his injury. That would be great. Um, Obviously, whatever team Lonzo goes to, they're going to get a really good asset. I mean, even though he doesn't have that, that scoring, and kind of like even though he doesn't score on a consistent basis, I mean, we know what he does on defense and facilitation wise. And I mean, if I had to compare him to anybody, I mean, honestly, he reminds me a shit ton of Rajon Rondo because we all know that Rondo really never had the jump shot. But we know he was always pass first, and he had that tenacity on the defensive side of the ball. I think that's really what separates the two guys. But anywhere Lonzo goes, he'll make an impact, and he's one of those guys you can really plug in anywhere because he isn't a guy who needs. Well, he can have the ball in his hands, but he's not a guy who consistently needs to just be, have so much attention on him offensively.
Funny that you mentioned Rajon Rondo. I can see the similarities in their game. The only difference is Rondo didn't have a jump shot. Lonzo just has an inconsistent jump shot. That's his problem because when he's hitting, he's hitting. Rondo, they tag off of him because he just couldn't shoot.
He can't shoot.
He's developed a better jump shot now, as you've seen in the bubble. But that was almost an anomaly because people were confused. Like people who couldn't shoot outside the bubble are now able to shoot in the bubble, and he was a prime example. But the person I compare Lonzo to the most is Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd, he was a pass first guy. He could play defense, and he developed a jump shot as his career went on. And a lot of people remember him as a really good sharpshooter, or just a good sharpshooter. I don't know how well your memory is, depending on who you are. But like the older Jason Kidd can shoot the ball, and I think that's probably the closest comparison to Lonzo. I think he's a pass first, he can defend, and that's what he relies on in terms of his game to open up everything else. I just agree with you in terms of he needs to be more aggressive because he can drive to the basket at will if need be. That's the only issue. So I hope that if he doesn't stay with New Orleans, he ends up somewhere really good. The Warriors, the Hornets, the Dallas are all good landing spots for him, in my opinion. They're mentioned Chicago. I don't want to see him in Chicago just because I feel like they have too many guards over there, and I think he'd just fall in the group over there, and he needs to stand out. Even though the Hornets have a lot of guards too, but they're able to mix and match them with Devontae Graham, LaMelo, Terry Rozier. But it is what it is. I think the Pelicans, if they want to keep Lonzo, they need to get rid of Bledsoe because they have Lonzo really playing the two, and he needs to be your primary point guard, in my opinion. Okay. But to shift over, we had our Lakers play the Boston Celtics, their big-time rival. Two franchises that are tied for the most NBA Finals championships ever with 17. Celtics fans were leading up to this game were bashing Lakers because they had the Mickey Mouse ring, yada yada. But then again, the Celtics, it was hilarious. They were like, says the team that has, I seen on Twitter, says the team that has won championship since the laptop looked like this. And it didn't even look like the laptops we have now. This shit was way back. So that shit was hilarious. So it was a really good, build up for this game. I enjoyed it. I'm speaking of the build up. I didn't enjoy the game up until the very end because it was close. They pulled off a thriller that came down to the wire. Thanks to Caruso, Caruso GOAT, he came in clutch, and the Lakers were able to pull off a 1 point victory. But the reason why I say I didn't enjoy the game, I was on Xbox while watching the game. I was talking to Jose, shout out Jose, and the game was just sloppy. Like
Yeah.
Anthony Davis didn't look like Anthony Davis. He was missing free throws, which doesn't really happen often. He just looked very sluggish. I know he was coming off, the one game break where he took a break, but he didn't look like himself. The game was just sloppy, and we weren't playing defense in terms of, I think, transition defense. We weren't being aggressive in the paint in terms of getting boards, and that's what ultimately allowed the Celtics to come back and take the lead for some time. They were feeding off of our turnovers and our sloppy play, and it was just driving me insane. It almost looked like I was on the court playing. And I had mentioned to Manny, shout out Manny, because he was like, "What's going on? You're complaining?" And I'm like, "It looks like one of our pickup games. Like it was that bad. Like full court pickup games. It looked like that." And I was just laughing with Jose because
I mean, maybe one of yours. I don't be
I
looking
said
like
no, no,
that on
no,
the
no.
court.
I didn't say just me
Oh.
specifically. I said one of our pickup games. Like we're playing each other full court, and like obviously everything's not gonna be perfect because we're not professionals. So it almost looked like that. It was like a bunch of non-professionals. Like it's almost like we hit up the Y and we ran a full court pickup game. It looked like that. We were watching a TV of a YMCA fucking full court pickup game, but
No, it was definitely a little sloppy. I mean, there was definitely like a good amount of turnovers that we kind of forced. We lost ourselves. Nothing really forced. We kind of were giving a lot of stuff up like that. It seemed like they were at some points, not completely, but some points, they would try to move too quickly offensively and not really get a good possession and try to get a good shot up that wasn't really the best shot. I mean, it seemed like they were getting a lot of possessions in which they were forcing it like that. So it was definitely sloppy, especially towards the end. We kind of pulled ahead a little bit, and then, the Celtics started surging, and that's when it was fucking a 1 point game. Even AD having that turnover at the end led to that. I mean,
LeBron
it was,
turnover that drove me
yeah,
when he tried to call ISO and they called for the ball and
yeah.
bro,
So I mean, it was just a lot of sloppy stuff. They didn't look all that great, but
I mean I'll take the win.
yeah,
I'll take the
they
win,
got the
but
W.
I'm very critical even in a win. And you and Isaiah both were like, "Shut up, just take the win, yada yada." I'm like, "No, like we didn't look good. Like
Yeah.
there's always room for improvement because even in a win, and that's my point. I'll take the win in terms of the record books or the standings, but there's things we need to work on. Although AD had 27 points, it wasn't a good 27. Uh, Tatum, look, he was frying us. He was 12 for 18 from the field, 2 for 3 from the three. He had 9 rebounds. Like we have more size than them, and he was able to accumulate 9 rebounds himself. My thing is I have Kemba in fantasy. Kemba's my favorite player now that Kobe had retired and passed away, sadly. But since he's retired, Kemba's been my favorite player. He played like shit. He shot 1 for 12 from the field, 0 for 5 from 3. So I'm over here cheering for the Lakers, but hoping for a good fantasy game from Kemba. That didn't happen. He gave me, I think, probably 10 points, but that's
You
because
almost
of his
cardiac
rebounds.
us at the end,
That's
though.
where I was getting to. Even though he had a terrible game, when he hit that cardiac step back, I'm like, it's over. It's over.
I thought it
It's
was.
over. And when it missed, I'm like, phew. Like, I'll take the win, but we
That
got
was
lucky.
Kemba from a few years ago. That was a big L.
Yo, once he hit the step back, I'm like, he's going to make it. He's gonna make
I saw that zit. I was like, he almost cardiac us, bro.
But it was just,
That should have
it
been bad.
was a bad game.
But it was a bad game. I mean, I think the most I really took from that game, obviously, I want them to play better down the road. But I'm definitely happy knowing that we were able to get a very close W, even though we were probably playing some of our worst basketball.
Yeah.
whereas the Celtics really didn't look all that horrible. So we know that obviously, Lakers are a lot capable of, playing a lot better and, making a better game of it. Even though I'm not taking away from the Celtics either, they're a great basketball team, and I mean that's what facing a really good basketball team does at the same time. So
One takeaway I got from that game, or two, I should say, the Celtics need to keep Tatum and Brown by all means together because they
oh
played they
yeah,
played they
100%.
played amazing
I think
basketball.
that's I feel like that's been a
Well,
given
no, no.
for
Well,
me.
they were talking about trading possibly Brown in a trade package for a James Harden or a bigger star or whatever. But Brown has been improving year after year, and this season he's been balling out. He could very well be an All Star, but in this game, he had 28 points. Tatum had 30. But Brown shot 13 for 19. Tatum shot 12 for 18. So like they were going hand in hand throughout the game. And then the other takeaway I got from it was although the Lakers played terribly, Montrezl Harrell had a really good game. He was one bright spot that I was enjoying because although the Lakers weren't giving 100%, he was still giving 110%. He was over here, grabbing boards. He had 5 rebounds, 16 points, shot 8 for 10 from the field. He was able to make certain cuts to get open. I remember one in particular where Kuzma hit him, cutting to the basket. Um, so that's one thing. Is all I know is when we're playing terrible, we still got Montrezl Harrell.
Yeah, Montrose has been huge for us. I feel like he's been the most consistent player on the team. Not the best player on the team, but the most consistent in terms of being able to bring it every night and get his every night, regardless of how good or bad the team is doing. Um, but I mean, he's been huge. Especially, I love seeing him get all those ISO buckets. I'm not sure if we read that stat off before, but he's got the most ISO possessions in the NBA, and it's at like a ridiculous percentage of like 10 of 14 or something. So, I mean, he's great offensively in terms of scoring and ISO situations, but he also can go out there and get you 10 boards a night. Um, he's just a fun guy to watch, and when you have him on your team, you feel better that he's on your team rather than being on the opposing
Yeah, because
team.
when he was on the Clippers, I hated him, and
Yeah,
I wasn't really impressed with him because the only games I really got to see from him was when they played the Lakers, and I couldn't stand him, especially because him and Patrick Beverly were hand in hand in terms of getting on our nerves. But now that he's on our team, I love the guy. He's a great energy boost, especially off the bench, because you know he's gonna be flying up and down the court, all around the court, and his mid range game has improved a lot. Like
yeah.
he's performed very well. But the only thing about this episode, I wish we had a Celtics fan on here, and I know we try to get one on here, but it would
It's
have
all
it would
good.
have felt so much better to rub it in, even though it was a terrible game from us. It would have been nice.
The But speaking of Montrez running up and down the court, I don't know if you saw that fast break after he stole it and he gave it to LeBron. He was like, "Nah, I'm gonna need that back." He was running up and down.
No, I didn't see
He's running up
that.
the court for the alley.
I didn't
That
see
was
that, but
nice.
we have one more topic to talk about. It's a very big topic, and it's regarding the James Harden trade. So, my question to you guys and my question to Jovan is what is wrong with the NBA's newest super team? Like, I'm going to read these stats off. So, the Nets since the Harden trade have a 122.6 offensive rating, which is the best in the league, and it would potentially be the best of all time, right? Wait for it.
Yeah,
But they since that trade they have 119.9 defensive rating, which is the worst in the league, and they would potentially be the worst of all time. So they're slanted. They're leaning one way, and
yeah.
it's almost like what is that thing that you go to the park and you teeter.
The seesaw.
Yeah, almost like a fucking seesaw. It's like they go on offense and they're doing really good, and then they go on defense and it fucking leans down.
Yeah, I don't really. I mean, I feel like we know what's going on with the Nets. I mean, I'm pretty sure. I think in past episodes, You mentioned how they're gonna need to go grab some defense because they really lost all their defensive pieces. We talked about in the past how they lost a lot of their depth. And we said it. We said that these three guys are capable of outscoring any team, and they've showed that they are capable of outscoring any team. But they also showed that their defense is so bad that they can allow the other team to outscore them.
Bro, they've been letting
By
they've been letting teams
it's
score like no tomorrow. I
yeah,
think that they've allowed the two most high scoring games from opposing teams all season. Like in terms of the entire league, they've allowed them the two most highest scores in this season,
yeah.
and that was 147 and 145, and that was one to the Cavs and one to the Wizards, which was their most recent game. And my thing is their defense is so bad that this past game when they lost to the Wizards, they collapsed and the Wizards scored 6 points at like hit two. Beal came down, hit a 3-pointer. Then they stole the inbound, passed it to Westbrook, shot a 3-pointer to take a 1 point lead, and they ultimately lost the game by 3 points. And Kyrie came out after the game and made a comment about his defense against the Wizards, saying, "I couldn't guard a stick today." And people came out and said, "You couldn't guard you couldn't guard a stick any day." Like this is that bad.
Yeah.
So like they're 6-3 since the trade. The 3 losses, 2 to the Cavs, 1 to the Wizards. So they had back-to-back losses to the Cavs, and in one of those games, Sexton had 42 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists. And then in the second game, he had 25 points, 5 rebounds, 9 assists. And then in the Wizards game, Westbrook had 41 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists, and Beal had 37 points and 5 rebounds. That defense is awful, especially with the Wizards being, I think, by record, the worst team in the league at the moment.
Yep.
It's bad.
I mean, Beal's been putting it on everybody, but I think the fact that they said Russell Westbrook had just as many points as he had shots, uh,
Before this?
I think, yeah, before this, I think that just shows you him putting up 41 on you. I mean, you can't guard. I mean, and that's really, I don't know. I guess the approach of the Nets is, a great offense is a great defense because they're just going to try to outscore you, but their defense is so bad. It's just
Yeah.
the offense can't keep up.
They went out and picked. They just recently acquired Iman Shumpert, so he hasn't played for them as of yet. But they're trying to get some defensive help over there because they direly need it.
They need it.
But so since the trade, both the Nets and the Rockets are 6-3, right? I mentioned that the Nets have the worst defensive rating in the NBA in that time period. The Rockets have the best defensive rating in the NBA since that time period. So they're on polar opposites of the spectrum. Although, people look at the Nets as a championship team or caliber team and the Rockets not more like a playoff contender or a caliber team, they're kind of performing on the opposite sides of the spectrum. The Nets looked amazing in Harden's first 2 games when it was just Harden and KD. But since Kyrie has came back, they have looked like a totally different team.
Oh yeah, I think the Rockets are the better team. They have the better team. I mean, obviously, it's just the Brooklyn Nets have
The
that
3 best players.
powerful trio. I mean, they have the 3 best players from either of those 2 teams, really. So, but really, the Houston Rockets are much better off after that trade, in my opinion. And obviously, everything was great with the Brooklyn Nets when they were first winning after James Harden's arrival. Obviously, it's going to be all sweet when you're winning. Now that they're facing a little bit more turbulence, I definitely would like to see if they can come together and play ball and win some games, or if they're going to kind of start. This is where they start folding on each other and players start getting frustrated. You know what I mean? Like that's really all it takes sometimes is you losing a few games and not finishing them, losing close ones, getting frustrated, and then that's where your chemistry can go sideways and a guy wants out. So I'm just curious to see how they bounce back. I think they will. I think they'll be fine, but I'm just curious to see how it plays out.
I think they need to change something. not just defensively, I think offensively as well. Defensively, we know they need as much help. And although I don't think this is going to happen, my question to you is, do they contemplate trading Kyrie for defensive help and depth? Because Harden is leading the league in assists, and KD is in the MVP running. I think he's top 4, top 5 in terms of candidates at the moment. He's definitely going to win Comeback Player of the Year. If there is even an award, I don't even think so in the NBA. But he deserves it because he's having probably one of the best bounce back seasons coming off an injury, especially an Achilles injury. Like, and my issue is Kyrie is he's their leading shot taker per game on a per game basis, and KD is your best player, not just in terms of talent, but he's having the best season amongst all of them. I think he's the better scorer.
MVP candidate.
He should be taking the most shots on a per game basis, but instead it's Kyrie, and I believe it's because Kyrie has the ball in his hand more often than not. So I think they need to mix it up some more, have KD shoot, more than anybody on that team, and they need to play through KD, like at all times.
I completely agree. I mean, obviously KD should be the first option on that team, but I get that it's more in a sense that KD is probably the only player the player that can play best off the ball on that team, I should say. So that's probably another big reason as to why he's not being played through as much, because he is a guy that can do, really anything in the game of basketball. And not that Harden and Kyrie can't, but obviously those guys are more on-ball players, and they make plays with what they can do with the basketball more times than not.
But my thing is, you can feed off of KD and his offensive game. Even though he's the leading shot taker, Kyrie and Harden can benefit from that. Not only them, but Joe Harris could benefit off of that. DeAndre Jordan could benefit off of that. Like, he can. You got to mix up the primary ball handler. It can't just be. Can't be Kyrie. Kyrie, Harden, and KD have to mix it up. And when it comes down to the wire, there shouldn't be questions where they're looking around at each other like, who wants the shot? Just give it to KD. He's taking the shot, barring they double him or someone's wide open.
If he misses it, he's taking the next one.
Yeah, like, oh well, who cares? Move on to the next game. Like, no one expected this team to go undefeated, but there's just so many holes, and it's not that these holes on the team are just minuscule. These shits are gigantic. Like, when you have the best offensive rating in the NBA, you would expect, they're going to be a really good team. Like, just look at the Mavs. The Mavs had the highest offensive rating last season, and they had made a huge leap in terms of being a really good, or being a playoff team. There's, I believe, 4 teams this season that have, they have a better offensive rating or better offensive efficiency than that Mavs team last year. And the Nets are one of them. You would expect them to be really good, but defensively, they're not even top 20. They're at the bottom, the bottom of the spectrum, bottom of the totem pole in terms of defense, which is terrible. And I think they're going to be heavy, candidates for buyout people, like especially centers like McGee or anyone who gets released. But look out. I think they're going to... I don't understand why they didn't go and get PJ Tucker in the trade for James Harden, because I think he could have helped this team a lot.
I mean, I give the Brooklyn Nets the benefit of the doubt right now, only because obviously they have holes on that defensive side of the ball. So I completely agree. They're not done yet at all in terms of who they got to grab for pieces. But I will give them the benefit of the doubt. I mean, they haven't played even 10 games all three together yet. I mean, they haven't played 10 total games together. So I will, I'll definitely give them the benefit of the doubt. They're 6-3. D-Wade, Bosh, and Bron started horribly in Miami. I mean, we'll give them some time definitely to, get that chemistry going. Not to say that there aren't, glaring holes. Like we said, that defense is the big key. But I don't want to jump on them too hard after, 8-9 games together.
I just saying, if they don't pick it up on the defensive end, then they're not going to beat the Lakers. They're not going. They're
Oh,
not.
they're not going to
They're
beat
not
the
going to beat. They're
Celtics.
not
They're
going to
not
beat
going to
even if the
beat.
Lakers don't come out. They're not going to beat the Clippers. They're not going to beat the Celtics coming out of the East.
They're not being the Celtics. They're not being Philadelphia,
Philadelphia is
especially
hot
with Joel
when
Embiid
Embiid's playing.
playing fucking MVP basketball.
And I don't
right
want to
now.
say they're not going to beat the Bucks because they've already beat the Bucks. But in a series that's could be questionable with the way they've been playing defense, and the Heat need to pick it up too because they're slacking. Jimmy Butler I know is just coming back, but they haven't been playing well either. And I think they might be in the market to trade for another superstar, a la Bradley Beal if he's available. That would be big. And breaking news, I know we talked about the Ball brothers, LaMelo Ball. So we're recording this on Monday, just FYI. LaMelo Ball will be making his official first start of his career tonight.
Oh no!
Right, I think it's tonight. Yeah, against the Heat on Monday. So yes, tonight. So he's replacing Terry Rozier in the lineup. So hopefully he can remain in the starting lineup.
That's dope. First NBA start. He's been balling. It's the rookie of the year right there. Either him or James Wiseman.
At the moment. And shout out Halliburton from the Kings. He's been balling out too. And quickly from the Knicks. He's not in the MVP, the rookie of the year running, but I just want to shout him out because the Knicks have been playing really well in terms of entire season. The Knicks are the number one defense in the league. Tom Thibodeau has got that defense, that team turned around. They're even though they might not be a playoff contender, I think they're in the playoffs at the moment. They're not an easy win.
Dev, and Julius Randle's looking like what they want Zion to be.
Well, a lot of people basically compared him to a more athletic Julius Randle coming out. So, and then look, now Julius Randle's been balling up. I mean, if the Wizards keep...
Julius Randle's the more athletic, or he's the more athletic Zion Williamson.
I mean, I'd like to see either the Knicks get Bradley Beal or the Wizards to go out and get Julius Randle to help Bradley Beal out because Westbrook kind of consistent wise ain't doing it. But
that'd be crazy though. Beal with Julius Randle.
If Westbrook can keep up what he just did against the Nets, this duo is going to be scary, and I think they'll turn the season around, even though, Thomas Bryant I believe is out for a season. I think they could turn it around with some additional pieces that they might have to pick up, but it is what it is. This season is very interesting. It's been short thus far, but a lot of stuff has happened, and I'm looking forward to it. Lakers-Nets, February 18th. So, it's February 1st, so when this comes out, it'll be February 2nd. Happy Black History Month, everybody. And February 18th, there's going to be a slaughterhouse. I don't know if it's in Brooklyn or if it's in LA, but it's going to be a slaughterhouse. And Lakers are taking it. It's not going to be a question. But it's going to be interesting in terms of...
They ain't going to have nobody to guard, man.
In terms of the Nets Twitter and the Lakers Twitter, I'm looking forward to seeing the slaughterhouse on that platform. I'm
looking forward to the Lakers putting up 200.
Oh, they should, but we'll see. Not the way they played the Celtics, but I'm looking forward to it. I hope you guys are looking forward to it. Make sure to comment what you guys think about any of the topics we covered, or even anything else regarding WNBA, NBA news. And thank you guys for tuning in. So that wraps up everything that we have for you guys today. First and foremost, thank you. Secondly, make sure to, give us a review or a comment and like, follow, subscribe. And make sure to hit that download button. It helps us out. So we'd appreciate that. And check out our guys at the Expansion Pack Podcast. We shouted out, who is it, Manny? And shout out to Chris too, because he's a Celtics fan. Shout out to him. But
that one hurt it.
If you're a gaming fan, it's a podcast for you. They know their stuff. Go check them out. Show them some love. Continue to show us love, and we'll show love back. Until next time, peace.
Peace.
You're talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. We're talking about balls deep in love. I'm talking about balls boys talking about balls deep. We're talking about balls deep in love.